My name is Jeremy. I'm the co-founder of NEWaukee, and this is a launch party for 3 new shows that we're launching on our Cloud Café. And I'm excited to have all of our hosts here to talk to each of them today. We're going to learn a little bit about them personally, what they're doing, their companies or organizations, and really what the show is going to be about and how unique it is. So I have Deanna Singh here, who is the the author of Purposeful Hustle. I have Emerald Mills here, who's the founder of Diverse Dining. And I have Andrea Hubbert and Dre Beltrami. Is that correct?
Beltrami.
Beltrami, close. The co-founders of the Solopreneur Society. So thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
I think I'm first going to start with Dre and Andrea. So why don't you, I'll start with Andrea and then we can go into Dre first, but tell us about your career path and kind of how you ended up launching the Solo Entrepreneur Society.
Yeah, sure. So I started in PR and I did public relations for nonprofits for most of my career. And then I got the great idea that I wanted to do PR for musicians. So I did that for 5 years and had a blast. And then I was like, okay, need something new again, kind of like the people who keep buying new cars every few years. So then I decided, let's try corporate. So I worked corporate for a global organization for 7 or 8 years, which I also really enjoyed. But as a cost center, because we were in 80 countries, our whole department was disbanded because the countries wanted to become centralized in the services that we provided. So I struck out on my own, started a company called Hubbert, which is how I met Dre, because Dre was the one who designed my logo, and let her tell it, I became a narcissist after that because I always was talking about how great my branding was. So then we had the idea, let's partner up. So in October of last year, we joined forces with the Solopreneur Society, which is really a nirvana for small business owners. Kind of like, I don't know, Dre, we like to say it's Costco meets Coachella. So
that's a good mix. So Dre, and you can jump in here too and kind of give your story, and then I'll ask a follow-up question.
Yeah, so I am a recovering corporate cog. Yeah. I finally got out of the rat race. I was in the biotech industry. Yay! I was a buyer for about 10, 12 years and used that as an opportunity to try and figure out what I really wanted to do when I grew up. And that took a lot of iterations, but everything kind of fell into design. I went to college for as long as I went. I didn't graduate. I went for interior design, and I was all about it until I figured out that I would be putting, floral pastels on upholstery and things that I just could not even imagine. So I was like, I don't think that's it either. And my mom was actually a wedding and event planner for about 25 years, and I always pushed back, wanted nothing to do with it. But then I got into the design side. So I started doing the couple's websites, and I started doing their graphic design, their invitations, and all that good stuff. And that's really, I'm completely self-taught on the design side, but I did that for a few years while I was in corporate America. I did the side hustle. Got a few clients, and then of course decided like, oh my God, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna go full blown, all out by myself. Yes, I'm ready. I wasn't ready. That particular brand totally failed. And I had that pretty typical, I think we've all been there, that really defining moment in our businesses where I knew I was a parent, I wasn't doing things my own way. So I regrouped, got a loan from the parents, ended up launching the branded Solopreneur, and that was really where everything came together for me. I always gravitated towards design, but I'm such a human behavior junkie. So when I brought branding into the mix and I really started to understand how human behavior really did tie to marketing and branding and design, everything came together. So I launched the branded Solopreneur, and like Andy said, in October, we decided to put Hub and Company and the Branded Solopreneur on a back burner and really go full force together, all in on the Solopreneur Society.
And I'm Andy, just so everybody knows, because we actually both have the same name. How crazy is that? So I'm Andy and
to make things just a tad bit more complicated for people. So I've always gone by Dre, and then we kind of forced Andy on Andrea.
Well, I've been telling people that Andrea's the Milwaukee person. Yeah. And Dre's not the Milwaukee person. So Dre's from Northern California. Yeah. So awesome. Okay, well, let's get to know the rest of our guests, and we'll come back to kind of the shows after that. So, Emerald, why don't you tell us about yourself?
Well, I'm really glad I got to go after these ladies, because I recently had the opportunity to take the Solopreneur Society's assessment about my brand, which of course my brand represents me. And it's funny because my brand celebrity figure was Angelina Jolie. And after I got my sister's kids, I used to always tell people I went from Beyonce to Angelina Jolie. And so I really was like, oh, this is really good. Like, out of all the celebrities, it matched me to Angelina Jolie, which, I mean, undeniably, I think is a little bit about what my brand represents, in the sense of bringing people together, having compassion, having courage, connecting people. And it is the way that I live my life, though. I really wish there was some therapy solutions, or some what can you do to help you if you are a caregiver, on the brand. But that's another show and another story, and I think the Dreas will be able to talk to me about this offline. However, that's what I do. So I founded Diverse Dining. As I said, I'm a caregiver in real life. I have my sister's 3 children, so I'm a mother. I am a full-time mom now at home with kids, and so that is very interesting. And as I know a lot of people know, and then I founded Diverse Dining, and so which I did that a couple years ago, and so it was primarily focused on face-to-face meeting, which I know Jeremy feels my pain with a very sudden switch to change programming from from online to virtual. And so that's what we've been doing. But we met over the last 2 years at various different restaurants around the city of Milwaukee to drive business into local restaurants, as well as to connect people from different neighborhoods and communities that typically wouldn't go to neighborhoods and connect to each other outside of that. And then I left my full-time job in July of last year. So I also began to do similar trainings, because that's where my background is, training, education, public health at organizations to build engagement among employees using food. So that is the gist of what I do. Now we've been being a little tricky with doing that online and figuring out how we're going to get people takeout, or if we're going to let people have cooking classes, or if they just going to act like they ate. Like, what do we do now with the food? So that's who I am, and that's what I'm doing.
I think I keep telling people that I've met a few new people that I've never met before through Zoom, and I think I met Andrea through Zoom. And then at what point do we actually become real friends, because we've never met in person? Or are we just not real friends until we like hang out together? I don't that's because I'm so used to doing in-person experiences. It's like a totally different thing, even though it's not that different, but subconsciously.
That is a benefit too, though. I mean, last night on our call, we had people from Mexico talking about the Mexican culture and Cinco de Mayo and how it's not really a holiday there. I mean, I wouldn't have had anybody from Mexico unless I paid them really well, or I just happened to catch them while they were here. And so, like, Mexico, Philly was on the line, a couple other cities. So, I mean, that is a benefit of what happens. And then, like, my nephew was in the back, like, dancing around my head and doing some other things while I was trying to conduct the training. So they would have probably never met him, or maybe not had opportunity. So that's another good thing that's coming out of this process, even though it doesn't always feel good.
And finally, Deanna Singh, why don't you tell us?
And it's Deanna. I just want to let you know, because we got all these cool names out here. I want to make sure we got the right one. It's all good though, Jeremy. Sure. So I'd love to share a little bit of background too. First of all, though, I just want to shout out these amazing women that are in this group. I want to come to all of your classes because the things that you're talking about really in this like entrepreneurial space is so incredibly important. And this idea of having to pivot, to think about how you're doing your brand. I remember Emerald, when you were just thinking about, starting and you were in the launch process. And I just remember how excited I was to hear about what you're doing. And so to see how much you've grown in such a short period of time and to know that there's just so much in the horizon for you, it's just awesome. So just wanted to say, yay.
Hey, back to you.
Thank you.
Rose in the building.
That's right. So my background is really eclectic. I've had a variety of different spaces and sectors and things that I've had the great privilege of being able to work in. I have done things in education, in tech, in the legal field, just kind of a little bit all over the place. Right now, what I do is I run a company called The Flying Elephant. It's an umbrella organization for 3 other social enterprises. The first is I do coaching and consulting with companies and with individuals. So really around like leadership, education, entrepreneurship, and diversity, equity, and inclusion. So those are kind of the 4 big categories that I spend a lot of time talking about. I wrote a book called Purposeful Hustle, which we'll talk about in a little bit, but that is a core place where some of that training comes from and some of that coaching comes from. Then I have a second company called Story to Tell Books. What I do there is I actually have published 2 children's books and 3 children's books, and get the opportunity to hang out with those guys and walk around and talk to educators and children and parents about the importance of having representation in children's literature. And then the third company is actually called Birth Coach NEWaukee. And that company I co-started with an amazing woman here in Milwaukee. And what we do is we provide labor support for women. So before, during, and after childbirth. And the purpose there really is that in Milwaukee, we have a huge disparity in birth outcomes. And the research shows you introduce a doula or a midwife and you can eliminate many of those disparities. And so we have a 1-to-1 model where for every woman who can pay full price, we're then able to provide services to a woman who otherwise couldn't afford it. So my days are super different now with, some of the things that are happening with COVID, but it's been really spectacular to be in 3 different spaces that all lead into my purpose, which I think is to shift power to marginalized communities.
And a great fireplace in the background.
Oh, thank you, darling.
Perfect place to put the computer.
Awesome. Well, let's go into kind of the show. We're going to start these coming up soon. So I want to give people an insight on what they expect on the program. So let's go to Dre Squared. Both of you.
The names that people come up. We've had Joe Sandy, Dre Squared. Yeah, we have
Those frauds.
Bitches. Yeah, whatever. We pretty much answered all of it. All right, so I'll start. Andy, you can take over. But what we're gonna do with our show, we're all about making 180s, right? We're all about understanding the changes that you need to make in the good way, and getting you to a place of bravery where you're ready to take those leaps. We are huge advocates of doing your own thing and not following down what we call the guru pipeline. Following bright lights that people tell you need to, that you have to do this, you have to do that. Our businesses, our lives, our beings are so different. It's really important to us to bring that out in your brand. So for our show, what we're going to tackle is brand personality. We're going to show you how to lean into your weirdo and your misfit and your idiosyncrasies and really turn that into messaging and marketing that's going to disrupt the crap going on that everybody is ignoring because we're just inundated with information and messages and posts. And we really want to show you how to come into your own, first of all, so that you can attract customers that feel like kindreds. And we also just want to show you how to really carve out a slice of your industry. What else do you want to add, Andy?
Yeah, so over a 6-week period, we're going to help you understand how to tickle the toenails of your audience. So we're going to start with, which Emerald was just talking about briefly, brand archetype. So who are you? Who inherently are you? And I'm so glad that you said that you called yourself, Angelina-like, and that you got Angelina Jolie. I was like, shoo, good. That was great proof. So we're going to help you understand who are you inherently and how do you use your archetype to pull the lever of your audience's emotional triggers in a good, ethical way. We're going to have some hot seat sessions. We're going to help you hone that voice. Once you discover what it is, we'll help you hone it so that you get comfortable living it out loud every single day. Because like Dre said, we believe that the one true differentiator for our businesses in particular as solopreneurs and small business owners is our unique personality. So let's brandish it every opportunity that we get. Our show is going to be a mix of video and live sessions. And then we'll see how it goes from there. Hopefully we'll have a long history of providing programming with NEWaukee and everybody else.
Awesome. And just to give everybody a little bit overview on the Solopreneur Society, it's an online platform, so people can, if they want to go to that website right now, what can they expect?
It's all around branding and marketing, really specifically for solopreneurs, because we understand being that to our core, that we're a different breed. We operate differently, we have different lifestyles, and we have different business models. So it's really, really focused and designed specifically for the plight of a human being that is trying to launch an entrepreneurial venture. It really is specifically to the small business and the solopreneur. So there is the best part of our partnering up was really that we have very different yet complementary expertise. Andy is so good at the sales and PR and communication side, and then I have the branding and design side. So we really tackle a broad range, but we have lots of frameworks and lots of ways that we get you exactly what you need, right? So we have a business success blueprint that helps you figure out where you are in your business so that you can figure out what you need. Because again, we don't believe in the guru pipeline throwing a bunch of shit at you. We don't want you to get lost in bright lights. We want you to find what you need, whether that's on the sales side or the design side, specifically what you have. So it's a very broad topic, but it's very, very specific to the solopreneur and the very small business owners.
And one of the things I've noticed, I mean, just being an entrepreneur myself, is the times where you don't have any peers that are entrepreneurs. And I found the community angle on the website, rather interesting. That how do I meet a lot of other people that maybe be going through the same struggles as me that I can tap into maybe for advice?
I'll let Andy jump in, but one thing I will say, the one thing that is the core belief of Andy's and I, is that it's not about the programs or courses that you buy, it's about the people you connect with. Yeah. So connecting our members and peers and associates is extremely important. We don't do surface level, we don't do like, let's hustle for the name of vanity numbers, we don't give a shit about any of that. We really genuinely are addicted to connecting and building relationships, and we know how much that really will impact your business, is who you know, how they can connect you with people, how they can support you. It's so much deeper than a really kind of tactical approach. So community is at the foundation of everything we do.
Yeah, we have two communities. We have our Facebook group community, which is where we help solopreneurs through things like theme parties and happy hours and connecting people together to help us solve a problem or answer questions. And then we have our 180 Lounge, which is more where they have our students have access to us, our members have more access to us. So we've become concierge style mentors to them. But then they also have coworkers without cubicles, right? Because everybody else in the community is helping, right? We're all, to your point, Jeremy, we're all peers and we're all working together to move our businesses forward. So community is huge for us.
And, Emerald, the community is really what you bring together. And, I've been a personal witness of spending over 48 hours with you in the woods for a weekend, and you trying to build community.
Keep explaining.
Yeah, there's probably should be a little bit more on a retreat, not just. But and I got to sit through one of your sessions, and obviously we've worked together and collaborated and stuff. So tell people what they can expect on your show.
Well, I am doing something a little different that I'm architecting right now. We are doing our diverse dinings virtually so that people have opportunities to experience those. But I came up with a series called Lunch Languages. So if you're familiar with the book Love Languages, it talks about the different love languages that you can have and how people can know more about you and better relate to you. So I'm doing a similar segment on lunch languages that is essentially telling the same thing, right? So like how to look at how people eat, what they eat, when they eat, and how that can tell you more about people and be able to relate to them in a different way than we maybe have related to them in the past. And so I'm going to bring to life some characters like the person who sits at the cubicle all the time and eats their lunch at their desk, or a person who is constantly going to the water bubbler when they should be working, and just what are some of those behaviors tell you about people. Because sometimes we look at that, and if it's different from us, if I'm the person that sits in my cubicle all the time and eat, I might be really focused on an outcome that I maybe am not seeing. Whereas a person who's looking at me is saying she's antisocial, or I may not feel like I connect to that community, where I work at. And so I may be sitting at my cubicle because I'm in isolation in the place that I work. And so like, how can we look at these common characters that we have characterized and in some ways have made NEMIS, office NEMIS or whatever community in the community, how they may be eating or how they may be working, and judge them? How can we look at those people and pull out the good things about it and figure out how we can better relate to them? And so I'll be combining, I'll be sharing a snippet of what that session and that series looks like and going over that over a series of time. And I'll also be driving people to still encourage people to support different local restaurants in the meantime. So going to grab their takeout at some different spots and going around and doing that as well. So I'll be providing my training on the go.
And we had earlier in the Cloud Café about a month ago, we had Dr. Magda Peck on, who created the public health school here in Milwaukee. And one of the things she said is the most important question you can ask anybody is what they've had for breakfast, because it can tell people, if what their socioeconomic background is. If they couldn't have breakfast, it could tell you that they, their same routine every day. It could tell about their routines. It could also tell you about, if they maybe they never have breakfast because they're always on the go, or if they skip it, or what they eat. It can tell you a lot about the person, and it's pretty interesting psychology behind it.
So I love it. I have to go back and watch that.
Yeah, it was really interesting. That was the question she asks a lot of people. So, okay. Deanna, how about you?
Yeah, so I'm going to be with the group for 4 weeks. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be focusing on the hustle of Purposeful Hustle. So in the Purposeful Hustle book, we talk about first, purpose. What is that? Why is it important? Why do you need to have it? How do you get to it? Unfortunately, we won't be doing that in this session. But what we will be doing is kind of going straight to the hustle and talking there about initiative, resiliency, curiosity, and courage. So each week we'll be focusing on one of those hustle characteristics. And what I'm really excited about is that every week we are going to have a guest. So for example, the very first one, which is tomorrow. So please join again tomorrow at noon. What we're going to be doing is talking to my friend, Pat Dwyer. And Pat actually has a theater and particularly an improv background. And we're going to be talking about courage. And so I'll share a little bit about what we talk about in the book, some of the techniques that we use. And then Pat is going to talk about how he uses courage in the work that he does and how you can implement some of those improv improv techniques as you're practicing your courage. So every week it's a little bit different. We'll have somebody do a hot seat. So we'll watch them actually walk through all of the different steps. That's going to be Dr. Lacey Coppins-Robbins. And she's going to be walking through like the steps of what it feels like to be curious, but then to come up with a learning plan so you don't get stuck in just being curious and planning and not doing something. So we'll be working through that. I have an amazing gentleman coming on, Marco Champion. He's going to be talking about resiliency. You will not believe his story. Like when I heard what his background was, I literally dropped the phone because I was like, this is amazing. Cannot believe what you've been through and how you've been able to persevere. And then we're going to be talking to Chad, and we're going to be talking about really this idea of what it feels like to be an entrepreneur and how you get to a place where even if you don't have enough money and you don't have any time, you don't have a plan, like what do you do to still get your hustle on, to still move forward when you're dealing with some of the challenges that the other amazing hosts have brought up in this conversation? How do you get through that, right? Like, how do you still persevere? So lots of great guests. They're people that I could listen to all day because they're so smart and they have such great like life experiences. And I'm just excited to be able to share it with the group.
Awesome. And I have a question from the audience here, and we can kind of rapid fire through everyone. The question is, how interactive are your shows going to be? Like, I guess there was no on a scale here from 1 to 10, we'll say. We'll start from the top.
Yeah,
I can go.
Go ahead.
Oh, would the top mean up or the
Go ahead, Emerald.
Okay.
I guess I don't know what your top is. Yeah.
Like, I think we all see a different screen. So
yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
oh, that's true. I didn't even think of that. Okay, so I'm looking at myself on the top. Like, I guess that's me. Okay. So mine will be very interactive, and I'll be utilizing, like I said, some questions at Diverse Dining when we have a virtual or in person. When we do a lot of about half of our time is conversations with each other. So I really expect to hear from people as far as what questions they have or what challenges that they're having with maybe these characters that are being presented, and then how do we answer how we answer that and how we address it. So mine will be pretty interactive, especially after the first week. So I'll be able to get feedback and get questions and talk about them.
And I'll go next to Dre and Andrea.
So we have 2 forms of interaction in our show. 4 of our weeks are going to be videos, and the interaction is going to come that we're going to premiere the video and watch it together at the first instance, and on Tuesdays at noon. And the interaction will come in the comments section, so we can be having conversation about the video. And then we're going to have 2 live sessions in the 6-week period, which will be very interactive because we'll all be on camera together.
Yeah, and all of mine will be interactive. We're going to try a number of different things, so we're going to keep it spicy. Our hope is that every week we're doing something a little bit different. We want to make sure that you get a chance to interact, in particular with the guests and ask questions, but we'll have some, polling that we're doing. I want to tell you what I'm going to do tomorrow, but I'm not. You have to come and hear it for yourself and experience it for yourself. But if you're in any kind of, way feeling like you need to amp up your courage, you should definitely join tomorrow and see what that's about.
And I'll do one more question here. Well, I got 2 more questions, but I'll get to one more for sure. I know I wanted to keep this a little to 30 minutes, but one of the questions was, and anybody can answer this in any order since we're all looking different screens. What are the advantages and disadvantages of doing online programming to in-person?
Oh, I miss hugging people. I mean, I'm going to be honest, like I miss that component of it, like the touch, the being able to see people, because we're all looking at different views. Sometimes you can't actually see how people, like right now, we can't see the people who are watching us. So that makes it really, really tough. So I think those are the things that make it hard from my perspective. And we were talking about this actually just before we got on, of the things that make it great. I mean, we do get to bring in other people who otherwise maybe wouldn't have been able to join us. It's something that if you can't come at the same time, you can come later on. It's definitely got some cool widgets that you can use, as you're thinking about how do we do this on Facebook at the same time that we do it in Zoom. And so there's a lot of learning opportunities there, but it's definitely different.
Yeah, it's like you can't use all your senses.
Exactly.
You know, that's kind of the biggest thing.
Exactly.
I
Anyone
would,
else?
I would,
Say that. Oh, go ahead.
no, you go ahead. I went first last time. I'll go last this time.
I was just gonna say I haven't done in person in so long because I moved to the mountains and I have a kid and peopling exhaust the shit out of me anyway. But what I will say is with this whole, especially with the COVID and people who, I was just telling a friend the other day, I think it's funny that so many people 2 months ago were like, oh, Zoom, no, I'm not techie, I don't know how to do that. And now we're all like, oh, you could click a link. Yes, everyone's like me. It's really not that difficult. You can click a link, Zoom, things like Zoom make it really easy. But what I think is going to be the best thing that comes out as far as this in-person to really moving to such a virtual interaction is that it's really evening out the playing field, and it's normalizing video. So many people have fears of video because they think you have to be perfect on it. They think that you need to have high production quality and editing and all this stuff. And what it's really going to do is make that a more casual, authentic experience. As you can see my shit in the back, right? I had to move all my kids' stuff so I could do something in the living room. Emerald was talking, I think it was Emerald was talking about the kid in the back when you were trying to have your training session the other day. That's something that actually is making us feel more normal and connected and a more authentic experience on video. And I don't think that's going to go anywhere once we are able to return to more normal in-person things. I think that people are going to still rely on that virtual because we are scattered all over the world. But I love the normalization that nobody thinks you need to go buy some expensive equipment and have really great lighting and all this stuff. We just want to connect. And I'm all for more connecting and less worrying about perfectionism and bullshit like that. That doesn't ultimately affect anything. It's all about that connection.
I don't think that there's gonna, there's a one-to-one correlation, right? Or one-to-one translation, right? You can't do exactly what you did offline, online, right? We know this. I miss touching people too sometimes, Deanna, although sometimes I don't. but what I do
See, I'm just gonna do this. Like weird.
What I do think is that if you know the vibe you want to set for your online event, and you know the experience that you want people to walk away from, and you fairly well know the equipment that you're using, I think that you can still create an environment where people are going to feel just as connected and build just as great a relationship, not just as great, but build relationships with people and still be able to get out of whatever it is that you've done because you've thought it through and you were strategic in your approach to it. The willy-nilly stuff isn't what's going to work. It's really thinking about the experience that you want your audience to have through the digital platform. That's going to make the difference.
Yeah, for me, similar to everything everyone else said. I definitely miss hugs. I'm a hugger. I miss smiles. I feel like I was probably like at least 85% good at reading people. Like I was 85 accuracy. Like I could look at you when I'm in person with you and like figure you out. And so like online, I'm like maybe 10%. Like I don't know what none of you guys are thinking on this call. I don't even try anymore, which is probably good because like you said, I mean, we now have an opportunity, it is changing the way we connect. It is changing. And I know that's a tagline.
That's my vision. That's our vision. I think you just said my vision statement. That was not planned.
I thought about that after I said it, but no, I mean, online it is changing. It is changing the way that we connect and we communicate with each other. People are having to be authentic, even if they're faking it. They're not doing it well because it's like, I mean, you start hollering at your kid for getting in the background. Like now we know more. So it's like it's no way to not be authentic to some degree online. I mean, to a much greater degree than we could on in person. People could hide it better before when I think that is the biggest thing that has changed. Is like people's masks have had to come off, and like we unfortunately were wearing just way too many masks and way too people were overestimating their importance and underestimating their importance, and and making big things small and making small things big, and you just can't do that as well. I mean, you can do it. You can do it, but I don't even really think you can do it. It's very, very hard to do it. And so I think that that's the benefit of what's happening online. I think when we get in person, like we'll have to bring what we reveal to everybody behind these Zoom cameras to wherever else we go. And so, that's just how it's going to be. I mean, I miss the hugs, so I miss the love. I miss my kids having a teacher. I mean, I miss like not having to be
Not
there.
being a teacher.
I miss it all. I'm gonna be honest. I thank God for how it all used to happen, and I wish that it would happen again. So, but yes, it's some great things that came out of it.
Yeah, when we came up with that vision, like change the way people connect, this is not really what I had in mind, but but yeah, this is definitely changing. In a way, we kind of have had this, right? We've already experienced this with the way sports is, I guess, in terms to in-person versus online. The online was just TV, right? But the difference between going to a sporting event live and watching it on TV, I think, is the difference in going to a program live and watching it on a Zoom cast. It's just the smells, the cheering, the energy is just different. How can you recreate that will be the interesting, as everybody I imagine that does these programs is trying to do in the future, is how do you create that energy? And also, at conferences and at your talks, I think Andrea and Deanna, I believe you mentioned earlier that you were like kind of personally stalking each other or something, or something like that, or some kind of like, that I always say that conferences were made at happy hours in the hallways, right? You heard some conversation, you had that bump, you had that, what we call here in NEWaukee, deliberate serendipity. You're deliberate about where you are, serendipitous moments happen. You don't have that chitter chatter after, the event just ends, these kind of online events. I keep thinking of ways of how do we keep it going, like, go in the breakout rooms maybe if you wanted to have that conversation after. But those will be the changes that we'll adapt to, I'm sure.
If the host ends, it ends. Though last night we had kids. I told you we had kids and adults, and the kids. Our online session was supposed to last 2 hours. It lasts 2 hours and 37 minutes. I was pressing the leave button, but the kids were still dancing. Like they were still online dancing, and they would have probably danced for another 30 minutes if I didn't have to go and I didn't end it. And so I think that one thing that I think is what's happening, and it's a strain for me. Don't get me wrong, but we are really having to be intentional about meeting needs that people really have, and people are having to be really, really intentional about saying what needs they have, because if we don't know what need you have, we can't really meet it. We can pretend that it's met, like I can go wherever to avoid what I have to deal with and what I really need. But if I don't have that option, now I have to deal with what I really need and what I really need addressed. And so I think that's what's happening, and I think everybody, if they're listening on any level, is having to address something within themselves, and having to deal with something, and having to find real help and real solutions, because the girlfriend that you might have called every day with whatever issue you were having may not have been the solution. And so now it's like, I really need some help. So let me find somebody who can provide that support that I need. And so it's going to change. It's going to change the way the world is, I think, as a whole, because people are going to need real answers and real solutions.
Tune in next week for Emerald's dance party.
I know. Why wasn't I invited?
Come on. You were invited. You probably weren't on my page, Deanna.
Well, anything else that you guys want to leave on the guests and for future? Otherwise, we can wrap this up. And
I just want to say that I think all of our sessions are actually really going to feed off each other. Like, as I'm listening to you ladies talk, I think everything really goes together again about being brave and understanding who you are. Everything that we talked about really wraps around that theme. So I'm excited to attend your guys' session, and I just think it's all going to feed into each other really well. So I don't know if you planned that, Jeremy. I'm sure you want to take credit for that.
Curation,
right?
That's my specialty.
As you guys were talking, I was like, how am I I got to figure out, I was like, how do we have not enough time and all the time at the same time?
I know.
I'm like, I got to come to everybody's session, because I'm like, this is so good. I was just thinking that every time everybody talked about their session, I need to be there.
Emerald, when is your session again? I don't remember hearing you say
it starts next Wednesday at noon.
Okay, so it's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Yeah, why don't we
at
just
noon.
reiterate that closing out
Okay.
here, whenever a session is.
Yeah, so Andy and I starts next week, Tuesday. I don't do time zones. What is it, Andy?
Noon Central.
That's it.
Mine starts next Wednesday, I believe the 13th at noon.
Okay.
And I'm coming to the mountains where you are, Andrea. I'm gonna find you.
Call me, girl, until you do one.
As soon as COVID-19 is safe.
And I will be on for the next 4 Thursdays at 12 o'clock, so at noon also. So we have a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, starting tomorrow is
Just
when
put it on your
our
calendar,
shows-
guys. Noon to 1.
Right.
That's right. That's
Every
right.
day.
Every day.
No,
We're changing lunchtime.
That's right. Let's all meet up for lunch.
We're not picky. You could bring your meal, you could bring your beverage, you could bring your noisy ass kids, whatever.
You gotta bring your meal to mine.
There you go.
Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for your time and good luck on your shows.
Awesome. Good luck, everybody. See you
Thank
soon.
you.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye, guys.
Tomorrow.
Bye.